Alphabet.
Oh. And on that note, welcome to another edition of Flashback to the Track.
Presented by Blue Emu, a product with such maximum relief deserves maximum exposure.
As always, it is the fantastic duo MC Killers. Not really, no. It's Mark and James, though. Mark, how's it going, man? You're in a kitchen. That's
Yes,
a word I can't say right now.
I am.
I guess I can because it is a podcast, but I won't.
I am in an extended stay hotel in an undisclosed location.
Yeah, that's right. It's like that Billy Mays commercial from back in the day with ESPN TV when it first came out. It's like, you need to lay low. You bet too much.
Maybe you had to leave town suddenly. Just got in the car and drove because that deal didn't go down the way you thought it would. You incurred some debt, bit off more than you could chew. Hey, we all make mistakes. That's what you told those Yakuza businessmen, but they did not want to hear it. No, they certainly didn't.
Literally, yeah. That's where I am. I'm just laying low for a while for this week. So yeah.
He bet a little too much money on that on probably whatever Churchill Downs or whatever horse race just happened. Horse racing, man. That's the only place I feel like horse racing and dog racing, even though it's very unethical.
It's incredibly unethical.
Incredibly unethical. Are probably the two places you just go and you're like, I'm gonna bet it all, and you could like end up in a situation like you're in right now.
Yeah, exactly. You'll end up living in a Spring Hill Suites to just chill. And James, what are we talking about on this week's episode of Flashback to Track? Last week's episode was riveting, by the way. If you haven't heard it, it was James and his girlfriend Kaylin talking about going to the Roval last year. It was very good. I listened to it the other day. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's right. You better listen to it.
And you got a break. You guys got a break from me, which is probably great for everyone. So
I mean, everyone needs us every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I feel like what we added was, you know, the female touch.
Exactly.
We added, we're not like Hank Hill where we think, you know, men should only install washing machines and service them instead of actually using them. You know, we're progressive guys.
We're very progressive. You know, it's good. It's good to get the insight of someone who's not as diehard a fan as either of us are. So
I think, yeah, that was really great that she was just willing to dive into.
I was going to say that she was even willing to do it with you was kind of cool. You know, that's awesome.
She's always down to do something that's like fun and creative. But I thought it was really interesting how she dove into like the deep dives of her fandom and what she thought of it as a non so diehard. So yeah, check that out if you haven't. It's a great listen or watch. We had some fun B-roll footage in there, Mark. Man, I had to sprinkle in that Sony footage.
Very vloggy. I dug it, man. It was awesome, but very high quality. Not like, "Sup guys, we're at the Roval." You know, that
wasn't what I really wanted to do. I was like kind of practicing, you know, I was just like, let me try to like see if I can get some things I wanted to. I wish I would have had my long lens. I really would have. Then I would have got like pro photos, especially at that last corner as they were hitting the curb, like from my perspective up atop the grandstand. It would have been a sick photo, but
it is what it is. You're going as a fan, man. You got to have fan times, you know, look with what you got.
I don't know, man. I just like working time more, but anyways, enough about personal lives and stuff. People want to hear about some racing. And Mark, I gotta say, some of the most fantastic nationwide series events and Busch Series events that ever happened at Montreal on the road course at Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve, man. And I remember there was a time when your boy Robbie Gordon
won a race there. Yeah, I know. It was in 2007. It was the inaugural event, and he won it. And if you think that he didn't, you are incorrect.
Our guys get spun when they slow down. That's exactly what happened with Marcus. He spun me when I slowed down, and they tell me I'm going to go back to 17th. It's not the way it is. It's happened many times. They set precedents before, and we'll appeal it. We won this race.
Because I watched the race, and the rules say you get 3 laps to respond to a black flag, and there were only 2 laps left. So he won. Cut and dry. Did his burnouts and everything and drove his car into victory lane. So
the rule book is normally in someone's back pocket at a NASCAR race, but I don't think they were willing to hear Robbie Gordon out that day.
Well, the other thing too is like, if you haven't watched that race, go watch it and then tell me that Robbie Gordon didn't get screwed, because he did.
I don't know. I think someone else
When
got
you
screwed a
get
little more.
spun after the caution comes out, you should be able to go back to where you were, because the caution was already out and the field was frozen and someone spun you intentionally. You should get your spot back, because I'm pretty sure it happened not that long after to Jimmy Johnson at a race, and he got to have his spot back. And I was like yelling and throwing stuff at my television. And I was like, what? It's because it's Robbie Gordon, and NASCAR hates Robbie Gordon. So, and he got suspended from the next day's race. He got suspended from a cup race for something that happened in the Xfinity race. And PJ Jones had to drive his car at Pocono. So it was a tough season to be a Robbie Gordon fan, man. It really was. You know, it was tough. It was a tough season to be a Robbie Gordon fan, man. And I was like yelling, what?
Get suspended from a cup race for something that happened in the Xfinity race.
It's because it's Robbie Gordon.
NASCAR hates Robbie.
They spun me when I slowed down, and they tell me I'm going to go back to 17th.
Tell me that Robbie Gordon didn't get screwed.
NASCAR hates Robbie Gordon.
What? It's because it's Robbie Gordon.
NASCAR hates Robbie Gordon.
It was a tough season to be a Robbie Gordon fan. It really was. You know, it was tough. He has a banner at his shop and an exact replica of the trophy, because he knows that he won. It wasn't Kevin Harvick. It was him. So, anywho, moving right along, we were talking about, well, James, all the Montreal races were bangers. Every single one was an absolute banger. Like, there was no bad Montreal Xfinity races. They all had drama. They all had, I feel like everyone had like last lap stuff. Like when Ambrose drove over the curb in 2009, ran a perfect race and messed up the final corner and lost. Robbie Gordon ran out of fuel in 2010 with 2 laps to go. He had the race won, ran out of gas. And then we got a photo finish with Boris Said and Max Pappas, you know, like just awesome races. And then 2011, Marcus finally got his win. That was a great race as well. So awesome races. But we're talking about a specific race today. We're talking about a momentous event in the history of NASCAR that I don't think gets enough attention. We're talking about the 2008 NAPA Auto Parts 200.
Yes, that's right. Now, this is race number 23 on the Nationwide Series season, and it takes place at Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve. Mark, my man, this is in your homeland of Canada, but geographically, where is Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve in location of the giant hat above the United States?
Well, it's in Montreal, which is in Quebec, and it's pronounced Montreal. Montreal.
There's 3. Do it again. Give me another good one there.
Montreal. It's not Montreal. It's Montreal. Or if you're French, Montreal is how it's actually pronounced. So I love how Americans say it, though. Montreal. Montreal.
I say it like Montreal.
It's all one word.
It's got a lot of syllables, man. It's
on an island, actually. The circuit. So you have to take a bridge out to it. I've actually never been there. Unfortunately, I haven't had an opportunity, because the really only big event that happens there now is F1, and it's incredibly expensive. So I just kind of avoid that. But yeah, it's an amazing track. It's named after Gilles Villeneuve, who was a Canadian F1 driver who tragically passed away in an accident. And it is a 2.71 mile auto racing track, and it has hosted the Canadian Grand Prix for F1 since 1978. So F1 comes there every year, well, except this year, but that's extenuating circumstances. And you know, it's an A-graded FIA track. It's got the F1 garages and everything you need to run like a proper F1 race. Seats a ridiculous amount of people, and just the layout of the track, it's one of the shorter circuits on the F1 calendar, and it is a very fast lap in an F1 car. I think it's one of the longer races in terms of lap. I think it's over 80 laps. It's very long in terms of F1, but it's a shorter track. So, but very fast, super long back straightaway where they get up over 200 miles an hour. So it's a really cool racetrack. Like it's one of my favorite ones to play in F1 2020 for sure. It's an awesome racetrack.
Oh yeah, and it's such a beautiful setting. Like you said, it's like an island, and you know they kind of have it open as a like a public facility for more or less triathletes and trainers. They can go year round, and you know basically use the facility. And to me, as an American, it's like if you took Belle Isle and it had the greenage and the look of Central Park, but a little bit of that vibe that you get in Millennial Park. Like you just take all those 3 places and there's a racetrack mainly that's cut into it, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, way less abrasive than Detroit, but
No bumps really.
No,
I mean,
not
other than
really.
the curbing. Jeez.
But it's a cool racetrack. And 2008 though, this is a really interesting season. So this is back when Cup drivers could run as many races in Xfinity, or sorry, nationwide at the time, that they wanted, and they could win multiple championships, James. They could enter all 3 championships if they wanted and run all the races. So
Yeah.
we've got, if you look at the top 10 in points, we've got a lot of full-time Cup drivers. In fact, 5 of the top 10 in points at coming into this race are full-time Cup Series drivers.
Yeah, these drivers are, like you said, competing as well for the Nationwide Series Championship. Among those in the top 10, Clint Boyer is the points leader. Then you have Carl Edwards, who's sitting 3rd, David Rudiman, who's sitting 4th, David Reagan sitting 5th, and then Kyle Busch way back in 7th. Now, at this point in the season, you got to ask yourself, well, who's still running for this championship? Well, Kyle Busch is actually out, so he's just going to run whatever races he wants to go win.
He was initially going to run the full season between 3 different teams, but he was so far out of it, he just stopped. He gave a few races off, you know?
Yeah, it's just like, I don't need to do it. I don't need to waste my time. Focus on the Cup stuff. So
Exactly.
David Reagan, David Rudiman, Carl Edwards, and Clint Boyer are still competing full-time in the Nationwide Series as well as the Cup Series. So that's a lot of traveling, because there's a lot of races that are non-companion races that are very far apart. These standalone races, they do hit different markets. And I mean, I remember they went to Mexico City. They were going to Iowa as well, Kentucky. I think they still went to Milwaukee.
They went to Milwaukee the same weekend when Cup was at Sonoma. It's like a 5-hour flight to go back and forth. So those guys were committed.
Yeah, these are the most committed of the stock car racers, especially when you have the opportunity to compete for multiple championships. It's kind of crazy not to try and achieve that goal. Like we said, this is the 23rd race of the season, but it's the 2nd race that the Nationwide Series has run at Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve. So no one really has a grasp on this circuit quite yet. There's been some success, but what's been noted in a lot of these Xfinity races and nationwide races at the time were a lot of international drivers running these road courses. So instead of doing strange starters, we're going to talk about the Canadian starters. There are 11 international drivers in this field, but 8 of those drivers are Canadian. So Mark, tell us about some of the proud drivers representing Team Canada today.
Well, first off, we'll go in numerical order. First off, we have Trevor Boyes, and he's driving the number 01 Chevy for Johnny Davis Motorsports, still around today. This time they were starting in parking lot, but got to do what you got to do to pay the bills, man. Next numerically would be my boy, the man, the myth, the legend, Ron Fellows. He should be on our money. Like, he's one of the greatest athletes in the history of Canada, and he gets no respect. It's terrible. He's a Corvette racing legend. He's won Le Mans with Corvette. He's won Daytona with Corvette. He's won 1 million ALMS races with Corvette, and he dabbled in NASCAR, and even for a time thought he was going to go full-time in NASCAR. You know, he talked about doing that with DEI. Didn't end up happening. But he's already won 3 Xfinity races before this at Watkins Glen. He won in 99, 2000, and 2001 at Watkins Glen, driving for Joe Nemechek. So he's got a lot of experience in this kind of car. Also has some truck wins, all at Watkins Glen again. So he's coming to this race, man, feeling pretty good about his chances to get a win. So, and, you know, I'd love to see him win. In the number 9 Dodge for Evernham Motorsports, we have Patrick Carpentier driving the Subway Dodge. This is a sick paint scheme, by the way, if you've never seen it. It's an awesome paint scheme. I like how they would run different paint schemes in Montreal because it's a Canadian market. So sometimes they'd have like different sponsors or different paint schemes because of that. But yeah, he's you know, Quebecois. He's a local, and the fans really want to see him do well. Then we have Andrew Ranger, who's another Quebecois driver, and he actually won this day the Canadian Tire Series race earlier in the day, which is now the Pinty Series. He's still a regular competitor on the Pinty Series circuit, so he's a very talented road course driver. Fun fact, he actually won 4 straight ARCA races in New Jersey. Not a lot of people know that. Up next, number 32 Toyota for Braun Racing is Jacques Villeneuve, the 1997 Formula One world champion. So that's amazing. He's from Quebec. It's his local track. The track's named after his father, and the fans have come out in droves to see Jacques Villeneuve compete in this race. Kind of just a one-off deal with Braun Racing. He was supposed to run full-time in Cup that year with Bill Davis, but the deal fell apart when they couldn't find sponsorship. So shows up to Montreal, says, hey, I'm going to try and win this race. So coming in as a ringer. Then we have the number 81 Dodge, driven by DJ Kennington. A lot of fans probably know who DJ Kennington is from his recent racing. He did some driving for the Gaunt Brothers Cup Series team, but he's been dabbling in all 3 NASCAR series for several years, and he's a former Pinty Series champion and still a regular competitor on the Pinty Series schedule. Actually operates his own team, DJK Racing, and they actually field a lot of cars for development drivers at CTMP, Truck Series drivers, so they can get some experience there before they run the truck race. So he does a lot of that. Had Riley Herbst in a car last year. He had Jeb Burton in a car once. So he fields a lot of those cars. And then we have Scott Steckley in the 91 and Don Thompson Jr. in the number 90. Other Pinty Series guys just having a one-off. Let's have some fun in the Xfinity race. Or Nationwide, sorry, at the time. I keep saying Xfinity. Getting my sponsors in there.
It's not like Nationwide's any of our insurance, so
no, it's not.
It doesn't bother us. Now, there are 5. Well, first off, Mark, congratulations. That was quite a list
of
Canadian greatness. It was just a lot of greatness right there. That's like a lot of your country to be proud of right there.
Hey, man, we got some great racing drivers in this country. Put some respect on them. All right?
Flex. So there are 5 full-time Cup drivers that flew up north from Pocono, Pennsylvania. It's funny, huh? In America, how can you get more north than Pennsylvania sometimes? Am I right? No, I'm just kidding. They flew up to Montreal for this race. Now, Carl Edwards was one of those drivers in the number 60. Roush Fenway Ford. Clint Boyer, as we mentioned, the points leader in his number 2 RCR Chevy. Shout out to BB&T. That's my bank. Yeah, that's all I got. David Reagan in the number 6. Roush Fenway Ford. David Rudiman in his number 99 Toyota. It's not a Dream Machine though. It's sponsored by NAPA, which is disappointing, Mark. I wish it was a Dream Machine.
Well, it's the race sponsor, so let's get on the car.
He gets NAPA. Greg Biffle also will round it out in the number 16 Roush Fenway Ford. But you know who isn't technically flying to and from Pocono? It's Patrick Carpentier. Now, he was competing full-time for Evernham in the Cup Series, but he's just going to focus on this race this weekend in the number 9. And in fact, they got a pretty good driver to fill in for Patrick at Pocono. They had Terry Labonte. He piloted the number 10 for Evernham that weekend. Unfortunately, didn't get a great result, but it's cool to see Terry Labonte still, getting competitive rides, because that team was pretty decent.
It's cool to see him cancel his retirement 8 or 9 different times. Yeah.
Hey, it's like you're retired from full time, man. You're not retired from the hustle. Still go. You'll still
remember
go
Darrell Waltrip said when Bill Elliott started doing it, I wish I'd done semi-retirement. I could have run for a bunch more years. So
he did the same thing, Darrell. Geez, you did the same thing with your victory tour every year at Martinsville. It was probably like the cliche. Oh, is he going to retire this year? Guess he'll retire again this year, because he kept coming back and doing like a one-off race in Martinsville, whether it was a truck and then finally in that Xfinity race, which was the Busch Series at the time. Yeah. Darrell.
Well, James, so this is a road course race, and at this time there are 3 on the schedule, and the Nationwide Series had just started getting back to road racing. They didn't do it for a bunch of years. From 02 to 04, they didn't do it at all. 05, 06, they had 2 races, and then in 07, they added the 3rd race. So now we're like road course fever. We got 6 next year, but there was only 3 at the time. So how much preparation do you put into it? How much do you commit to it when there's only 3? So you really have to think, how much am I going to put behind this? But road course strategy is very different than oval strategy.
Oh yeah, strategy is one thing, definitely with what the crew chief has to think about, like whether they're going to gamble on their calls, how many different scenarios you think about, whether you play the two-strop strategy, a one-strop strategy, where the cautions might fall. What do you do when that caution falls? Do you pit? Do you not? Do you deviate from the strategy? That's a huge aspect. One thing that I saw from this race that was mentioned was that a lot of the teams were basing notes for this event off of Mexico City from that year, which was very interesting. I don't know if you can, explain the similarity to the Mexico City circuit versus Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve, if there is really things to compare. I mean, they're both flat F1 style.
I was going to say they're both F1 tracks.
Yeah.
Mexico is a lot longer, I believe. So, and they had to add it. Well, they added a chicane in the front stretch. I remember they did that. But yeah, but you look at your notes from other road course circuits, right? And because Mexico is flat, it's the same as Gilles-Villeneuve. There's very little elevation change. So you're not a bad call. Like you got to look at your data, right? And just see what's going on. So you look at your New Hampshire data for Phoenix back then, and it was flat, that kind of stuff. So, or Milwaukee versus New Hampshire, things like that. So yeah, it makes sense. But they got smaller fuel cell. So that's going to make things interesting. They really have to play with that on the road course. How are we going to do it? But on road courses, you're likely to get cautions, longer caution periods as they remove vehicles, things like that. So you can make that smaller fuel cell work.
Oh, that's good to know, because you definitely don't want to be spending time on pit road. I think like the biggest thing you can do to win this race is spend the least amount of time on pit road and therefore get the best track position on the racetrack. But here's something to note that's huge with this event. If it rains, they're going to race. It doesn't matter, okay? Because there are Goodyear Eagle Rain tires set to go. That's right. There is proof, because there's a set that's visible on camera, Mark. That set is mounted. Okay, that's proof that they exist.
Yep.
So
special tires is the key. Special tires.
That one set only.
Yeah, they have tires just for this, designed for running in the rain, that I feel like have been a passion project of Goodyear for so many years, and they've like never gotten to use them. They're like, man, it's never rained properly for us. Because up to this point, the only times NASCAR had ever raced in the rain or had cars on track in the rain was Dale Earnhardt tested rain tires at Watkins Glen in 1995. Terry Labonte also tested them at Martinsville in 1995, and it did not go well. That's why we don't run in the rain on ovals. They ran practice and qualifying at the Suzuka circuit, the exhibition race in 1997, and one practice session at Watkins Glen in 2000, the Cup Series. So not a lot of experience, but we're going to do it, man. If it rains, and there's rain in the forecast, so it's coming. We're gonna see some rain tires perhaps used in this event.
It's been funny though, because it's been like in NASCAR's back pocket for the last couple seasons for the Xfinity Series.
They've teased us with it
just
so many
in case. Only the Xfinity Series though, never the Cup Series. No. Only the Xfinity Series,
which I thought was interesting. Like I want to see the Cup race in the rain. So. Or we got close at Portland in '99 with the trucks. It was raining on the parade lap, but then it didn't hold off, and we didn't get to use the rain tires. I was really excited, but
the trucks in the rain are better.
That'd be badass. Yeah. The broadcast though, James. So this is an interesting broadcast because NASCAR is back on ESPN. Starting in 2007, ESPN got the deal for the Busch Series or Nationwide Series at the time to broadcast all of those races and half the Cup Series schedule. So ESPN had been out of the NASCAR game for a lot of years, and then they came back. And man, I don't know about you, but I dug the ESPN broadcast. I thought this was a solid broadcast.
Oh yeah, I always loved ESPN's broadcast, especially like when you knew that a majority of the crew was, with the Cup race at whatever location that was, and when you had a companion race for the Nationwide Series, you had kind of like the B or C crew kind of mixed together. And that's what we have with this setup. All right. In the booth, we have Marty Reed, Rusty Wallace, and Randy LaJoy.
Oddball, like just like a curveball in
Yes.
there. Randy LaJoy is calling a road course race. Amazing.
I always loved that he was a guy who was an analyst that they would bring on like NASCAR Now back then.
Yeah.
But that they would always call him in to be like, hey, Randy, you want to call this Xfinity race or Nationwide race? Yeah, sure, I'll do it. Like that was the great perspective because you have a champion of this series to lean on. And I like him because he doesn't have that Southern accent either. Like, he's got this different tone of voice. And when he says things, sometimes they sound different. He has different lingo that he talks with, and it's just cooler. I like Randy LaJoy. It really added a lot to the booth, in my opinion. And Rusty Wallace, man, he's the Blue Emu man. He's our Blue Emu compadre. So shout out to Senior Wallace there.
On pit road, we have some veterans. We have Jack Arute, of course, amazing veteran, does so many IndyCar races over the years. We have Mike Massaro and Vince Welch, back when he was an ESPN pit reporter. So he's bounced around, done all kinds of different stuff. So
yeah, it's like like you talk about retirement. He kind of came back out of retirement when ESPN came back. It was funny.
And now he calls the truck races for Fox. So getting to the start of this race, James.
Oh, whoa, Mark. You forgot, this is ESPN, dude. We have an in-race reporter.
Oh, that's right. We have an in-race reporter. My bad.
That's right. We got someone that's going to give this perspective from in the car. And in this race, who better than one of your boys, Patrick Carpentier. I mean, this is a guy who's got some good experience on Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve because I believe, if not mistaken, he's made 4 champ car starts at Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve. So
I believe so, yes. And he grew up racing there. I'm sure he's raced there in all kinds of different cars. So,
but he's never raced there in a stock car. So this should be interesting.
It would have been better if they had Jacques as their in-race reporter because he just
the language barrier.
He just would have like refused to talk to them. They're like, shut up,
Rusty. Hey, this is Rusty. Do you got a Jacques? Go away.
Yeah, that's what it would have been because he's so used to F1 where they're just like, close the gap to the car, copy. That's like, it's not like NASCAR where they have a conversation in the car. So, but we get to the start of the race. Now, there are dark clouds looming over Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve at the start of this race, and everyone is very worried that it's going to rain. Mm-hmm. But you know what? NASCAR says, screw it. Let's throw the green flag. We're just going to give her. Whatever happens, happens. And we're going to have a race today because these fans came out, and we're not postponing any races. We're just going. So the green flag flies, and they go down to the first corner. And this is an interesting part of the track because it's like a chicane right off the start. It's left, right, and then you're off to the next part of the circuit. So to get everyone through there 2 by 2, I remember back when NASCAR first said they were going to go here, everyone was like, there's no way they're going to get through the first 2 corners without wrecking. And they got through pretty well, not bad. They all figured it out and got through there. So
they can be gentlemen,
Yeah,
they'll be proper, and they keep on racing. There's good orchestration between all these drivers, a great display of give and take because they know that they can't win it on the first lap, but they're still jockeying positions, and it looks like organized chaos. Now, this chaos is just moving through, like Mark said, the first couple of corners, and you just see lightning in the background. It's just
that's the thing is like there's legit
crazy
lightning going on in the background, which is insane.
It's gonna be a big storm, man. It's like whatever's gonna happen. It's like Ollie said, it's gonna be raining sideways.
I feel like under NASCAR rules today, like that would have been like 30-minute lightning hold, like stop the race, and like they're like, hey, you know what? It's fine. We're on
they didn't have the legal ramifications of that back in the day.
We're on an island. We have, rain tires are lightning tires. We'll be fine. You're insulated. The fans are going to die though, Mark. They're in aluminum stands. They'll be fine because you just have to believe.
All right, we'll jump back into the podcast in just a moment. But first, how about a quick word from our partners at Blue Emu? Now that word is pod. And you might be thinking, pod, that's short for podcast, right? No, I'm talking about this pod. This pod is a pod of relief because this is a Blue Emu recovery bath pod. All you need is a warm bath to unlock the maximum relief potentials in in this little pod. So next time, if you're looking to draw up a nice warm bath to soothe your tired muscles and joints, try using a Blue Emu recovery bath. Now let's get back to the podcast.
So off the start, Pruitt and Pappas, they battle. Pruitt gets the lead from him. Pappas actually loses quite a few positions off the start. So not the best start for him, and he's driving that beautiful number 64 Chevy for the man in the booth, Rusty Wallace. So Rusty's calling races that he's got an interest in, which is good. You know, he's got his cars and his son's also in the race, but you know, it's neither here nor there. And, you know, Pappas, usually that car's driven by Davis Stremme, but he's not good on road courses. So Max Pappas, get in there. And then they all head into the hairpin. Great passing zone.
Yes, and it's brought to you by Dodge. Dodge knows that it's a great passing opportunity in turn 10 because it's a hairpin. And it's just as good as an opportunity like not passing on getting your ass into a brand new Dodge Ram. That's right. Because it's a Ram. It's by Dodge. Kalen just got a Ram. It's nice. I love it.
It's big. My sister has one. It's very big.
I don't have to drive it, so it's not my problem.
She hits a lot of stuff. But Ron Hornaday into the hairpin. He's the first one to use that hairpin to his advantage. He gets around the 18-year-old rookie, Joey Logano.
Oh, yeah. Bet you didn't know Hornaday knows how to drive on a road course.
That's the thing, man. There's some stuff that Marty says in this race that's not accurate. When he says that Mike Bliss, not known for his road racing, Mike Bliss won a truck race at Topeka, Kansas, Marty, and that's a road course, if I'm not mistaken.
I think Marty was on meth when he was also working the pits for the truck series, because I don't think he remembers any of the stuff that he was doing when he was covering Mike Bliss during that time period.
Yeah, it's like I'm pretty sure Ron Hornaday has a bunch of wins in road courses, so he knows his stuff. You know,
hey, trucks are just as hard to drive on a road course as the Nationwide and Xfinity cars. So on the second lap, Mark, we get a good pass up front because on the second lap, same turn, same move. This time it's Marcus Ambrose who's going to make the pass now on Max Pappas for second. Things are getting spicy up front, my friend.
Yeah, man, and we got some solid – the best is we got road racers at the front, man. We got Pruitt and Ambrose and Pappas. We have, like, good guys out here that know how to drive this circuit. And it's a tough circuit to pass on. There's only really, like, two spots to pass, like turn 1 and turn 10. So it's a – now you can try in other spots, but that's up to you, not advised. And the field's very orderly because I think – they're aware of the impending weather. So they're not really taking a lot of chances. They're just kind of taking it easy because they know that the skies are about to open.
And they do. Unfortunately, it's on lap 8. We get the first caution for rain. And with that, we're going to send it down to Jackaroo, who's going to actually give us the nice insight on these rain tires.
But I want to show you these rain tires. Now, these aren't untried or untested as you saw in the video. According to Goodyear and according to what the teams have been told, this is the heavy rain tire that Goodyear once used in road racing. You know, they have a medium and they have a lightweight and they have a heavy. And this was for heavier cars. But as we said at the beginning, we're about to see history made because never in actual race conditions have they been used.
Now, no joke. I'm pretty sure I heard Randy LaJoy in the booth say that these tires were made in 2001. So have they just been like sitting in some storage container in Ohio?
They've been sitting in a warehouse in Ohio for 7 years, and they finally brought them out and they're like, hey, you know what? This weekend, this is the time. And each team has one set mounted. That's it. One set to start the race.
That's all you need, man.
I have a feeling they're going to need. They're going to need more than that, James. I have a strange feeling,
much, man.
Well, if it's pouring, as soon as it starts drying the track, those tires are going to burn up.
Have you seen the sky?
But then
if you see that lightning,
yeah, you know what? They might need a second set. So during this caution, it's basically like a competition caution. So NASCAR said if it rains and they declare the race a wet race, everyone has to come down pit road, put the rain tires on, put a windshield wiper on, and they'll get 3 minutes to do that. If you get it done in the 3 minutes, you can keep your position in the race. Everyone goes out in the position they came in. It's not a competitive pit stop. This ends up being about a 10-minute break because of how long it takes everyone to do it. So
yeah, and
it's great insights.
It's more than just everyone has that 3-minute window, and normally everyone's going to get it done in that 3 minutes. And it's just to keep everything orderly. And NASCAR is not just going to be like, okay, 3 minutes are up. If you're not done, we're going to send you. They're going to keep everybody in order.
Yeah, they realized it was taking everybody longer to do it, so they gave
it wasn't actually that, Mark. It was the weather, man.
It was pouring. It was absolutely pouring rain on them. So you try and stick a windshield wiper on when you're getting poured on, you know. So.
Well, was it just pouring on the crew members? Like the back section of that track was just drenched in rain, and NASCAR had dryers out there trying to blow off the wet spots that were just building up into puddles. So they were trying their best to contain the racing surface, but also, you know, it did allow the crew members to do some interesting things to the setups, like Mark was saying, because, you know, for example, Marcus Ambrose's crew chief was trying to unstiffen the car because, you know, the flatter track, you wanted to have much more of a stiffer setup, let the front end do all the work and grab. But instead, with this wetter setup, they wanted to loosen the car up, allow it to rotate a little more in the rear. And that's just what basically Marcus likes. And a lot of these drivers kind of were going towards that. You know, a lot of the drivers were just kind of doing a monkey see, monkey do of like, if Ambrose is doing it, I'll do it, because Ambrose is probably one of the better drivers. If Pappas or Pruitt are doing it, we're going to do it too, because they're the better drivers. So it was funny to see that monkey see, monkey do kind of agenda with a lot of these teams who just have no experience in this discipline of motorsport, of just running in the wet specifically.
Yeah, and it's very different than running in the dry. Like, we get to hear, like, Marty and Rusty, they talk about the rain line. And what they mean by the rain line is the regular racing line is different in the dry than it is in the wet, because you're not going to take the same line, because you don't want to touch any of the curbing when the track is wet. Because if you touch that paint when it's covered in water, you're going to lose control of the car. You're going to slide the rear end, which is not good. So you're going to see guys take wider entrances to corners. You're going to see all kinds of different strategies. And James and I were talking about this earlier. You see guys run 4 or 5 different lines around the track, depending who they are. If they take the World of Outlaws line, or they take the tight line, you know, and just all drive it differently, trying to find grip. Because with these rain tires, they're so hard, you have to keep them cool as well. If they get warm, if you hit parts of the track that are starting to dry, you're going to burn your tires up and they're going to lose grip. So you want to be staying on the wet part of the track. So it's an art that a lot of these guys have never done before. But guys like Marcus Ambrose and, like you said, Scott Pruitt, Max Pappas, Horace said, they've done this a bunch. So they're going to be the favorites now that it is absolutely pouring rain. And during this break, we do get a lot of cool insights. Like, we hear from the Roush camp. So Colin Braun, who was a driver for them in the truck series at the time, a Ford development driver, but a great road racing guy, practiced Greg Biffle's car for him and actually simulated like a rain setup in the dry practice in case this happened, because the forecast got, you know, called for rain. So he could, and then he was also on the radio coaching Greg Biffle how to drive in the rain, because Biffle had never done it before. So really cool aspect that we get to hear about. And we also find out that Joey Logano has rain experience in a Legends car. So yeah, he'll be just fine.
I heard that from Dave Rogers, who also took advantage during his interview to give a shout out to his son.
Well, I do want to take this time to wish my son a happy 6-year-old birthday.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dave.
And it's just great to see that, for example, Rain-X doesn't need to sponsor a damn thing in racing, because they get all the plugs anytime it starts to rain. And you mentioned the fact that you got to Rain-X those windshields, which honestly should be on the checklist before, like if you knew it was going to be a road course race and the possibility of running rain tires was there and the forecast was calling for it, I would have checked that and actually wrote that in on the checklist.
I was going to ask you, have you ever tried to apply Rain-X to a windshield while it's pouring rain?
Yeah.
It's probably not the best time to do it.
It's not. So I don't recommend it. I've never had to do it because of like the fact I was having to go back out and race. But yeah,
I just like to watch the beating on the window. That's why I put it on. But
I think it works phenomenally.
It does. It's a great product.
People don't know how insanely that just works. Like, if you applied Rain-X, sometimes you don't even need your windshield wipers.
No, you don't.
If you've done a great coat of it, it'll just wick.
So Rain-X, send us some money. We also get to hear from our in-race reporter, Patrick Carpentier.
Patrick, do you think you got your car prepared good enough to race in the rain with the windshield wiper and all the systems you got? Are you comfortable?
Yeah, I think we'll be okay. You know, I'm comfortable, but I just they asked me, "Do you want to take the rear bar off?" And I said, "I don't know. I've never tried one of them things in the rain, so we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But let me tell you, the fans are gonna have a show now."
Okay, buddy. I think we're gonna have a show. The whole world's gonna have a show watching this race. So be safe out there, and we'll be talking to you.
Thank you.
Excellent insight about driving in the rain. It's going to be great when they throw the green flag because we're going to make history, James. We're going to make history. And
again, yeah. And the cars are going to start to roll off pit road, Mark, like you said, to get back out on the track. But I mean, it's a slow crawl as everybody gets out of their pit box. And once everybody's out there, as Scott Pruitt told NASCAR, it's, quote, ridiculous. I mean, it's not the best conditions to be out there and to be racing.
Yeah, it's not just raining. Like it's a deluge. Like it's downpouring. Like you said, NASCAR's got the dryers out to blow the puddles off the track because there's so many puddles. Because you can drive in the rain, but you can't drive when there's ponding on the track. Because as soon as you hit one of those puddles, you just lose control. So, that's why people say, well, how can you red flag a race for rain? That's how. If it gets too rainy and unsafe, we can't race. So clearly Scott doesn't want to go back to green, and we can see Scott's point because Stanton Barrett in his number 30 NOS Energy Chevy, great paint scheme, by the way, in the final corner under the pace lap, he loses control of the rear end and goes for a spin. So how about when they go full speed? I wonder what's going to happen.
I wonder, man. It's his dad did the same thing under, I guess, like the first caution. So those Barretts. But we also get the first of the Swiffer sightings. That's right. Carl Edwards. He's got a Swiffer, man. Just like Hans Stuck. Even though Hans Stuck did not have a Swiffer, probably. But, back in the day in his Porsche, probably that 962, that prototype, he had a Swiffer back in there, or some kind of device to clean the inside of the windshield. Well, Carl does too nowadays, and he's cleaning the inside of that number 60. Nice and bright. Free
pub for Swiffer, man. Like, best thing that ever happened to them. This has become such a meme. Like, people always bring this up, so it's awesome.
I love that. I love the ingenuity of the fact that it's zip tied to the arm restraint in the car. So, it seems like for the moment, it's pretty much tied up in that car pretty tight. So I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. Good for Carl.
It might reappear later. But getting back to talking about strategy. So road racing strategy is very interesting. And we get an interview with Frank Stoddard, who is the crew chief for Boris Said, and he's very unhappy with something that NASCAR has just told him. NASCAR has told the teams that you cannot put dry tires back on until we tell you you're allowed, once the track is dry enough. And in most racing series, if a race is declared wet and we start on wet tires, it's up to you whenever you want to put slicks back on. If you think it's dry enough to race on slicks, you can put them on. But NASCAR has announced that they have to make that call. So he's very upset because obviously with a veteran road racer like Boris, he's, if it starts to dry out, they're going to go to slicks way earlier than other drivers are because they have the confidence to in their driver. But now that takes that strategy away. So he's a little upset about that.
Yeah, but Frankie, rules are meant to help put people in a safe environment. And I don't think it's very safe if you're running out there on slicks when the track is just barely damp.
But NASCAR amended that rule, so you can do that now.
Well, now, yes, but at this point, I think that rule is just to protect everybody from themselves because, it's a very fast track and you don't want to go off anywhere, especially in the wet. So, sorry, Frankie, but you know what? The teams are still scrambling because, to Mark's point, they've already put one set of wet tires on. Now you want to have a second set just because you never know if you have a puncture, if you have to replace a tire, or, it's time to cycle around and make pit stops. You want to put some fresh rubber on that race car. You got to have a second set ready to go. And the teams are rushing to get that done.
And we're running a lot of pace laps here. Greg Biffle gets a little upset that it's taking so long to get restarted. We actually run 7 laps in the pouring rain under caution to get going again. But there was too much ponding. They had to get those puddles cleared off, and they had to be safe to go back. So we took a lot of caution laps. And
during that time, Dave Rogers even gets some tips on how to race in the rain from the peeps back at the Joe Gibbs Racing Shop.
Back in the command center.
And then no, he's just texting the bros, just like, yo, so what do you do? And then he's taking that information and he's relaying it to Joey Logano. That's great advice. Just take anything you can get,
known as sliced bread at the time, Joey Logano, because he's the best thing since sliced bread. The green flag, though, James, we're going to see it. And we're going to see it on lap 14, and we're going to have rooster tails flying everywhere as it is still pouring rain, and NASCAR is making history as they barrel in to turn 1. But we really have to take a moment while Marcus Ambrose checks out on the field to appreciate the names in the top 10 right now. This is just a momentous moment in NASCAR. It's Ambrose, Pappas, Pruitt, Carpentier, Villeneuve, Fellows, Said, Brad Coleman, and Carl Edwards are your top 10. 9 road course experts in the top 9 positions. Unbelievable. So cool to see. One of my favorite moments.
I mean, Carl Edwards, he started kind of further back. When you start 18th, I mean, that's not too far back to get to where you are, but hey, to get there with these conditions and the short amount of time he has had to do it, he's doing a pretty good job for himself. No wonder he's contending for that overall nationwide series championship. Now, even some of the skilled road course racers are not having fun on these track with these conditions, and they're slipping and sliding. Pruitt goes off, and he actually gives up second place to Pappas after giving up the lead on the restart to Ambrose. Then Boyer, the points leader, goes through the grass. Luckily, he only loses 1 spot, and he goes from 18th to 19th. He's still in the hunt, though, and I think it's all about survival for him today, man.
Yeah, and then we get to Jack Villeneuve. Now he's not really afraid to beat and bang with Ron Fellows, and it's the best battle on track, and he gets the crowd riled up, man, because you hear the sound ups of the crowd every time Jack Villeneuve makes a pass. It's just this raucous cheering because that's their guy, man.
I mean, that's the guy who raced Formula One there, man. That's the one they all saw on Sunday, the big Sunday. But, as this basically that battle detensifies, it's still pretty close, probably the best battle on track. We go see Gary Cogswell, who's going to give another shout out to his kid.
Hey, I got a couple of kids at home having birthdays today. Want to make sure I say hi to you, Zach and Steven. See you tomorrow.
That's right. All these crew chiefs taking advantage of their TV time to plug to their families at home. And he is able to get this plug because Ambrose is still leading on lap 19. And soon after that, from Ambrose himself, we get to hear what it takes to race in the rain.
Anyone will tell you it's about compromise. You give up a little bit of high-speed corner to make your slow speed better. It's about giving up a bit of traction to make your brakes better. So really, just an all-round compromise.
Marcus, that's an amazing insight right there. That's probably the best bit of information I've heard from all of this information I've heard throughout this race, because I've heard a million different ways to skin a cat and to drive on this circuit, and I'd just rather listen to Marcos.
And then the caution comes out for Justin Marks, who is stopped over in the Dodge corner, James. Dodge.
Yeah,
Corporate.
Get yourself one, people. It's Dodge. Mark, why is Dodge so big in Canada, man?
I don't know. We still have them in the Pinty series, and, it's just what we do. We love our Dodges. We love trucks. We love our trucks.
What do you drive?
I drive a 2016 Hyundai Elantra. Sorry, no, it's actually an Accent, and it's it's not great.
You know
what?
Dodge.
It gets me to where I want to go.
I thought all Canadians drove Dodges. That's what this race is making me believe, man. Anyways, Marks will get a push to get his Toyota back to pit road. Unfortunate, and driving that number 10 Braun Racing Toyota. Pretty fire-looking Toyota. It's green and black. Really nice. Unfortunately, it was stalled, so that's a bummer. But Mark, it was 8 laps of green flag racing in the rain. How'd you feel about that?
It was pretty solid. Not as many incidents happened as I thought they would. They actually got through it pretty good. A couple guys slid a little bit, but everyone was just incredibly cautious, right? And this is circuit 2 where, Ambrose will get a 6-second lead in 1 lap, and the guy in last is already a minute behind him. So they're all just taking their time, being smart, They've never done this before. It's like, hey, guys, let's not be stupid here. Let's just relax, figure this out. It's become a game of survival for like 85% of the field. So.
And to your point about that top 10 earlier, I feel like that top 10 is like, okay, we all know what to do. We're all going to be orderly.
It's those top 10 and everyone else like,
everyone else, they're like kind of sliding all over the place, but they also know that they're going to race each other again the very next week, and that they don't need to have any confrontations or bad vibes going into it. So yeah, race cautiously. But during this caution, we see some strategy. Now, 3 drivers are going to come to the pits. Of course, Justin Marks. One of them, major one, was Ron Fellows. Now he's going to pit for some tires and packs his number 5 full of fuel. Now, this is interesting, Mark, because he's not trying to technically go to the end of the race, per se.
This is...
Cam Strader, his crew chief, is actually trying to plan for something else, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so this is very interesting. Going off strategy can be quite popular in road racing because you never know what's going to happen. So Cam Strader maybe feels like this isn't going to go the whole distance. And maybe this race will get called early because it's raining very hard and there are more heavy cells of rain coming. So if we get to halfway and you have the lead, you might win this thing because NASCAR might decide it's too dangerous to keep racing. So pack it full of fuel and let's take a gamble. And maybe we'll get to a point where everyone has to go on a 2-stop strategy. If we do go back racing, right? If we have to, the track dries and we go dry tires and we go back to wets or whatever. I think it's the right call. You know, Scott Wimmer does this as well, actually. So he's the only other car that is on this strategy.
Yeah, and Wimmer got some road course advice from Carl Edwards. So I don't know if he could really value that advice, but at least he's following Ron Fellows' advice now, and Cam's quite interesting gamble. I love this gamble. I would take this in a heartbeat. Get off sequence, do something different. Don't follow the pack.
But James, Carl Edwards and the Swiffer.
What are you talking about? We don't have any Swift reviews during this caution. We go back to green flag racing, though, on lap 24. And Mark, man, there are comers and goers all throughout the race. And during this run, we get to really see some comers and goers because it's a nicer and longer run. One of them is a nationwide series regular, Brad Coleman. He's struggling, man. He's got some damage on his number 27 Ford. He's been roughing that thing up. You got to keep all the fenders straight on that car. These steel body stock cars still back in the day.
Yeah, they come down pit road later to fix it, and the whole left is jacked up, and they're like, we got to bang it down, get some downforce in it because they don't have any grip. So it's like, maybe if we get the front end banged down, we'll have some grip. So yeah, I love when you get to see the guys like jumping and like body slamming the car to try and fix the damage.
Oh yeah, it's like all those hours spent massaging, crafting the shape of that fender and just beating it with your whole body weight and just big mallets and hammers back at the track. Just beautiful. Pruitt, man, he was dominant. He was the guy that everybody thought was going to be the most dominant person when the track went to wet conditions. But, you know, he's back in third, and actually he looks like he's holding up fourth and fifth place running Jacques Villeneuve and Patrick Carpentier. So I don't know if he's really feeling what his number 40 is giving him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, really struggling with that Ganassi car. Like to get the setup right, I guess. I'm not sure. Like something about it.
Been working, man. He was really talking during that first break of like all these crazy things he was doing, but it just seems like, I don't know, it just seems like Pruitt isn't feeling the conditions maybe too.
Maybe they just overthought it, right? But another guy really impressed talking about comers is Stephen Wallace, man. He's taken a lot of flack early in his career for not having the success that people thought he would. But he is just gunning it. He's come through the field twice now, and he's up to 12th. So these wet conditions, I don't know where he learned how to drive in the wet, but he's crushing it, man. He's coming through the field.
Oh, yeah, he's doing pretty good, man. Not bad for his first start at the circuit. But a guy who's had a lot of success, looked up to the person whose name bears the name of the circuit. Ron Fellows is coming through the pack. He's up to 11th now, man. He's gained 13 positions since his restart. And you know what? his number 5 GoDaddy Chevy still packed with a lot of fuel, man. He's got more fuel than anybody else out there.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he's on the right strategy. And Jason Leffler, though, we kind of get to see the plight of Jason Leffler. He looked strong at the beginning of the race, but then once it started raining, he didn't look so good. So he's sliding a bit, just really struggling in that Braun Racing Toyota. Not really in his wheelhouse, this kind of stuff. So
I feel like he had a line and then he lost it, and I feel like he might have overheated his brakes because he's just struggling on corner entry everywhere. But we'll see what he can dish out in that number 38. But on lap 29, the crowd goes wild again because Jacques Villeneuve takes 3rd from Scott Pruitt. That's right, 3rd. They're going crazy for 3rd. And the rain, man.
Spot on the podium, James.
I know. Now he's at the end. He'll be mentioned.
Exactly. He'll get to spray champagne on the podium. They have that, right?
Yeah.
But next time around,
the rain is picking up, man. It's getting heavy.
The rain's picking up, like we said. Our road ringers are even having trouble. So Max Pappas ends up getting stuck in the mud next to the barrier, and he's going to need a tow from those wonderful Canadian corner workers. And luckily, the Rusty Wallace team, they do a great job repairing that 64, and they get him back out on track, and he's somewhat competitive, even with the damage that he took from being stuck. So,
yeah, and during this caution, Mark, we get it. A second Swiffer sighting. This time it's on track. I don't know how he did it, but Carl Edwards somehow got that zip-tied Swiffer off of that harness, and it's now somehow trying to clean his windshield. I don't get, even if the Swiffer could flip over, man, I don't see how his arm could somehow pop out of his dislocated his shoulder.
And he took his glove off too, and he had bare hand out the window, squeegeeing away with something that's not meant to do that. But
to Marty's point, man, that should have been like the number 1 of the top 10 plays of the day for ESPN.
It should have been.
Yeah. Like the in-car shot of him just like one hand in that. Like that wheel in your hand, it feels way different than your passenger car steering wheel will feel. Like when you move it side to side, it's much stronger. There's more tension to it. And depending on the camber and the toe, it could drop off really quickly from one side to the other. So, yeah.
So what you're saying is his hands, the wheel.
The hands, the wheel, a burger, anything. Swiffer should have I don't know why they didn't sponsor him after that race.
They didn't need to because they got all the free publicity they ever could have wanted. Because it's not like, oh, that's a squeegee. No, it's a Swiffer. It's green. It's 100% a Swiffer. So
it's just like Rain-X.
They didn't need to sponsor anything. Swiffer got all the free publicity. I shared that clip on my Twitter last week, and it just went insane. People love it. So still to this day, people love Carl Edwards and the Swiffer. One of our
actually, you're doing Swiffer's bidding just by sharing it.
100%.
Like Swiffer's like,
yeah, Swiffer.
We don't. They're like Leo in that movie meme. Like, we don't have to do anything.
Send us some money. We go back racing though on lap 33, and now it is absolutely raining cats and dogs. Man, it is pouring down, and this is not going to last very long. No one can see. That's the problem. It's not even grip anymore. It's that nobody can see anything because the defoggers aren't working. That's why Carl was trying to squeegee off his window, and the rooster tail's flying up off the car in front of you. You have to take a different line on the straight just so you can see. So it's crazy at this point, man.
Oh, no, not only that, too, but you mentioned we're on an island, and with the islands come fog, and the fog is rolling in, too, on the back straightaway, which is adding another literal layer to this race.
Yeah, it's crazy, but the crazy thing is that Ambrose is excelling in these conditions because he's got the lead, so no one's spraying rain at him, but he's just checks out on Jacques Villeneuve, who's still looking pretty solid despite the very insulting rookie stripe that they put on his bumper. How dare you? He's an F1 world champion on a track that he's done all kinds of racing on. Give that man a rookie stripe? Come on. Ridiculous.
Smile, rookie. Psh. Anyways, we move a little further back in the field to see Ron Fellows has made his way up to 4th. What? That's right. Remember that call that his crew chief made, Cam Strader, about pitting already and taking fuel and tires? He's still looking pretty. And now he's got track position. So the second that these leaders start to cycle in the pits, not only is he going to gain the lead, he's going to gain a lot of track position on them and time, which is crucial.
Yeah, he needs this to stay green, so they have to come in. And man, if this gets like called for extreme weather, Cam Strader looks like a genius.
Oh yeah, and he could pull this off. But it's not going to go and get called just yet. All right, we still got some racing, and in fact, we see a weakness out of Marcus Ambrose. In fact, Jacques Villeneuve attempts to challenge Ambrose, but you know what? Ambrose cracks the whip and gets his number 59 back up to pace and pulls away from the Canadian. Ambrose just toying with him, I guess, or maybe he's slipping up a little bit as the fuel burns off in that car. The back end's getting a little lighter, and it just doesn't feel right. But, Mark, we talked about this. Ambrose's experience in V8 supercars, I feel like, is the biggest advantage because Jacques and Patrick, though they do have probably experience in sports cars, they don't have experience with really heavy cars. Their backgrounds are open wheel.
Yeah, cars with a lot of downforce that, and the tires are twice as wide and the car weighs half as much as, Harry Hogg told us. So everything always comes back to Days of Thunder.
It always does. But unfortunately, unlike Days of Thunder, we get green flag pit stops, and those start at lap 40. The leaders slowly cycle in. Everybody who's on that one-stop strategy is now starting to come down pit road. And Mark...
Crew cam, James. We get the crew cam, which we don't get enough of.
That's right. ESPN giving us a crew cam. And this time, Brian Jacobson, he's carrying the crew cam for the number 9 Evernham Motorsports team. And they do a really interesting call on their pit stop. They do fuel only. The crew members check all the tires. And one guy goes underneath the back of the car and unhooks the sway bar. Really quick, they had a system in place to have a quick disconnect for the sway bar, and they were able to do that during their pit stop. And actually, during this whole cycle of pit stops, we get to see a lot of different strategies. Teams coming in, taking 4 tires, teams coming in just taking fuel, teams taking fuel and focusing on servicing the driver, such as cleaning the windshield. So a lot of different strategies, but when the leader comes in, Mark, everything just goes off the rails. Because first off, Marcus slides and loses some time on track. Then he slides coming into pit road, and he's speeding on entry, man.
He gets posted for speeding on pit road, which means you got to come to a drive-through penalty of a 30-mile-per-hour pit road in the pouring rain while other cars are making their pit stops. So not ideal. And this leads to Ron Fellows ending up with a 42-second lead. That strategy. And he's still got about 20 laps of fuel, James. So he's sitting pretty right now. But, if this goes green, it's not going to work out for him. But luckily for him, the caution comes out on lap 46. And the track's turning into a river. What's going to happen, man?
Well, you know what happens? Unfortunately, a couple drivers are actually going to have incidents, and actually it's going to be the second and third place car that wreck under caution. Jacques Villeneuve, we don't see how it happens, but the front of his number 32 Braun Racing Toyota is crunched, and Joey Logano is in the wall just before the final 2 sets of corners, man. He's junked. I don't know what happened, but to Roger's point, man, the caution came out in time, but the red flag, that came out 1 lap too late.
Yeah, Dave Rogers really wanted NASCAR to call this. It's funny that he's like, hey, man, my driver doesn't have a lot of experience. They're hydroplaning under caution. We got to call this. And then they cut to his car in the barrier. Yeah. And then NASCAR red flags at the next lap. So they maybe, they figured it out. We get the red flag. And I love how we find out in the middle of Jackaroo, talking with some of the drivers, talking to Carl Edwards, what's going on with your race car, Carl? How are you going to get going? Oh, it's over? Okay, it's over. And that's how we find out that the race has ended.
Subtle, Jack. Subtle. But yes, we get to find that out as basically everyone's rushing to somehow make victory lane happen, and it does. And we get to go see Ron Fellows as he jumps out of the car. Congratulate Ron.
Banging the roof of the car, his signature celebration.
Smack that roof. He even compared this race sort of to racing at Le Mans with the Corvettes in the rain, which I could see the similarities because the circuit's do bear some similarities as well, especially once the rain must pour. But of course, Ron was almost in tears for winning at this track. It meant a lot to him. And there was a point even at the end of his interview, it really stuck with me. It's like he was calling his wife over just to celebrate the moment, have the moment with her. And he was just like, honey, come over here. I don't know how many more of these we're going to get. It made you want to appreciate that more as the observer.
Definitely.
To grasp that Ron won this race.
No one's mad that Ron Fellows won this race.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? Like if this race gets called, like no one's ever happy when a race gets called early, but like, because the fans only got to watch half a race, but it's Ron Fellows and he's Canadian and he won in Canada at the track named after his hero. So it's the greatest feel-good story in NASCAR. It's one of my favorite races of all time. We have these videos in Canada, James, these commercials that are heritage minutes that play, part like pieces of history. They got to have one for this race. Come on. Part of our heritage. Ron Fellows. Come on, man.
If only this race continued and actually stayed, because to your point as well earlier about the road course fever at the time, it was interesting that they put the road courses that they chose were in these international locations of Canada and Mexico City, Mexico. I mean,
and it was tough for the teams, to do international travel is very difficult, especially only this time it's 2 races a year, but now with the trucks going to, CTMP once a year, it's very difficult. I've talked to people that work on truck teams, so it's a big expense, but I like that NASCAR does that. I like that they go to another country to see other fans. I remember when they announced Montreal, I was 16 at the time. I was kind of like, really? Of all the tracks, Montreal, why don't they go to CTMP? And I didn't know how well it was going to be, but man, we had some of the best races ever with Nationwide cars at Montreal. It was a lot of fun. So this is an awesome race. I mean, this is my favorite of the bunch. Well, other than the one that Robbie Gordon won, but you get to see Ron Fellows. You get to see the good guy triumph, which is always great. It's always a feel good story. And it's definitely my favorite race that ended early for rain. So.
That's a fair point. I mean, it's a great race because of the fact that they pushed forward with it, even with all the scenarios. Yeah, it was controversial with some of the strategy that could have been played because of the rules that were implemented, but also it was 100% out of the box. No one had ever thought of what could really unfold. You could run scenarios through your head all you want if you're NASCAR, but in the end, I think they executed a solid job officiating this race, calling this race, knowing what they did know. And you know what? In the future, if they continue to run in the rain, which I hope they do, because they've been some great Xfinity races in the rain since this first one, Mid-Ohio.
Mid-Ohio 2016 was baller.
That was great. I love the ARCA race too this year at Daytona. That was really good. And that showed that, if you just give the drivers something good to work with, they can work with that, and those were drivers that probably had zero experience in the wet for some of them. And they had to really adapt and apply. So, it's not that hard to race in the rain. It's all up here. But here's the thing. Everybody thinks they're the bomb.com in the rain, and sometimes they're not. So,
well, like Scott Pruitt.
Scott Pruitt is pretty good though, man.
Yeah, didn't have a very good race though.
I think it was just he wasn't comfortable with the car, man.
Honestly. This is one of his last races too.
Yeah, which is a shame because it's such a competitive ride he had in that era with Ganassi.
He was never able to win, unfortunately, at any level. He had a chance at Mexico in 2007 until Montoya just dive bombed him and his teammate.
And he ran very competitively in the Cup Series too in the mid 2000s.
A couple second place finishes, second place finish at Watkins Glen, So
it's just hard to pull it off in the Cup Series. I think what it is you need to be there week in and week out to really understand how to push that car all the time. Even though when they go to road courses, a lot of the Cup drivers are kind of out of their element. The vehicle isn't out of their element. That's still the one area they know. Where if you think about it, the road ringer, they know the track, but the vehicle, now that's out of their element.
Yeah, a little bit, but they, good racers will figure it out, right? And we saw that from guys like Ron Fellows over the years. And, this is a great race. It's one of my favorites. I'm glad that, James actually suggested we do this race. I hadn't even thought of it. I was like, we have to do some road course this week. And he was like, we'll do this one. No brainer. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Good call. So yeah, awesome race to talk about. We'll do the 2007 race at some point. I have to come to terms with it though first.
I think
Still
maybe
not
what
over
we should
it.
do is just get you and Robbie to both talk about it because you
This
guys
is-
want to nerd about it.
Still not over it. So, but yeah, it was a great race. It was awesome. Sad that Robbie Gordon didn't come back to defend his win. He was actually so soured by that he didn't come back to Montreal until 2010.
I feel like everyone in Montreal just did not like Robbie Gordon after that.
Yeah.
They were like, "You just disgraced motorsports to us." No offense, Robbie. No offense, man. I don't know, man. That's just what I think the people thought.
But great race, man. I'm glad we talked about this one. If we're going to rate this one out of 10, for me, it's a 10. This is an amazing race. We got rain for the first time ever. We got the right guy won. It wasn't a fluke ending in the rain. Usually a lot of them are a fluke, like, Justin Haley, things like that. Well, I hate using the word fluke. They stayed out. It was the right call, so they won. It ended up being the right call. But Ron Fellows' team had the best strategy, and it worked out for them. So it's a great race. 10 out of 10, man. Amazing race. I love this one, even though it's only 48 laps.
Yeah, I got to give it like about a 8.9 just because I think the thing that really hurts it, no offense to them, but the sloppiness of the ESPN BC crew sometimes can get you in some places.
A little bit. I'm with you there. They kind of some misinformation now and then, like the Mike Bliss not being good on road courses, that kind of stuff.
Fake news.
Not real. Anything I don't like is fake news. Remember that.
But yeah, there was a lot of just times where I have to second guess, like, what'd you just say? And then have to really think about it. And yeah, and here's one thing I will say. Rusty Wallace really improved in the booth, especially around this time. I know that when he first got into the booth with ESPN, he was really a fish out of water, especially when he was trying to cover IndyCar races, because that was a very foreign discipline for him to try to grasp his opinion and his knowledge and insights around. So when he got to NASCAR, I know he was good, but he was just not really clicking, and he worked really extensively and closely, especially with Alan Bestwick, to try to hone what he should be doing in the booth, when he should be talking, what he should be presenting, how he should be describing what's going on track. And in this race, he does a solid job. And, Mark, you kind of did poke at it a little bit. There's a lot of conflict of interest he's got a little bit by calling this race, but he does a good job of calling it still. I think
definitely he never goes too much on Steven or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Dale Jr. with his teams now, same thing. He doesn't go overboard. But it's definitely awkward when two of his cars take each other out, and then they're like, "So, how do you feel about that?"
Oh no, I think that's just great TV right there.
Yeah, it is. That's the thing. It's just great television. So
that's why NBC loves that Junior calls the Xfinity races. He probably doesn't like it, but
even Jeff Burton's got his kid racing now too. So
well, I mean, Jeff can just be like, "Well, you just made a dumb call. You just made a dumb move."
The only guy without any skin in the game is Rick Allen. So,
Rick Allen's just bawling. Yeah. He's just I'm just going to go home and do some carpentry after this. I don't have to worry about talking to my family about how they performed on track.
Going back to ESPN, though, the ESPN crew of that era was incredible. Bestwick, Rusty Wallace, and Andy Petrie was unbelievable. I loved that group. So,
yeah, I mean, no offense to Rusty, but when they finally got Allen in there, and they did Allen, DJ, and
Dale Jarrett too. Dale Jarrett's great. Yeah.
That was probably the best lineup ever. Just how decisive and quick Alan Bestwick would be with his calls, because he finally gotten to that point. And then Dale Jarrett was just so good at giving insight and painting that picture. And Andy, when he gave you his blunt crew chief opinion, it was great. I love that that setup and that crew. They had a really great commentary, pit box, that was in that virtual studio thing.
Yep.
I think it was 4 people there. That's why I love Brad Doherty, and that's why I was so sad to see him go, because him being there, and when he caught to call Xfinity races and nationwide races, I loved those races. His insights were great, man.
I'm so glad he's back, and even that booth. What was so great about it was they weren't afraid to call people out either for bad strategy calls or messing up on a pit stop. Very much if you watch the F1 broadcast now, they'll call people out. They're like, "That was what are they doing?" I feel like they're not harsh enough now on the broadcasts on NBC. I feel like they give the teams the benefit of the doubt way too much. I want you to call them out on their bad strategy calls. Come on.
Yeah, not only call them out, but like
but mention it. Add some context. Be like, hey, that's probably not the best idea. I probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I think Steve Letarte specifically does a decent job of doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
And so does Jeff Burton. Sometimes Dale Jr. does too. Dale Jr. gives a great job of like being blunt about a driver just making a dumb move, especially Jeff Burton. I love those guys. They're just like, that was dumb. Yeah. But
anything happens. But it's funny. Funny anecdote. I was watching the race this weekend, and I was complaining to my wife that they do that a lot. And then while I was watching the race, I was like, whoa, and I'm like, they call the race like me when I watch it. So I probably should stop complaining because I'm the same. So
yeah, it's just they forget to push the mute button, Mark.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They were about to say something and they're like, damn it.
So
man.
We've gone way off course here, which we always do because it's pouring rain, so it's hard keeping it on track. So
if you're Mark,
yeah, I'm not great. I'm not a great driver. I'm really not.
You just got to drive slow.
Exactly, slow.
You got to go 80%.
Slow and steady wins the race. I have read Art of Racing in the Rain though, so I know all about dogs because that's what that book's about. But anyway. Great race. Really enjoyed talking with us, James. Thanks for suggesting it. As always, you can find all the episodes of Flashback to the Track on Spotify and most of the recent episodes on YouTube. You can watch us in sound and vision, as John Heidnoff would say. You can see us if you want to, I guess. Look at us. It's cool. Thank you, as always, to our sponsor and our partners and our friends at Blue Emu for everything they do for our podcast. It's fantastic that they're with us. And guys, go pick up some Blue Emu Super Strength. Available at Walmart and other major retailers. They're the official pain relief product of NASCAR and Major League Baseball.
That's right. Mark just plugged that so well. Look at him go.
I'm a company man, James. I'm a company man.
I know it sucks that you can't buy it in Canada, though.
You know what? I'm not in Canada right now.
And on that note, Marcus gave away his location. We'll probably wrap it up for tonight. You enjoy whatever time you're listening to this podcast. Enjoy your day, night, evening, whatever have you, morning. Who cares? Have a good one until we see you in the next episode. Stay safe. Keep calm. Wash your palms. Be nice.
Wear a mask. Bye.